Hi folks, welcome back. Thank you for watching. Please do hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. It really does help when you do that. So a couple of weeks ago I compared these two fantastic tube overdrive pedals, the Effectrode Tube Drive and the Kingsley Page. I also compared the Page to the Effectrode Fire Bottle in that video, which is a kind of clean tube boost, but the main bulk of it was comparing these two. Now in that video I swapped the stock tubes out of the Tube Drive for some much lower gain tubes to bring it more in line with the Kingsley Page, because this has a single 12AX7 in it with a gain factor of about 100. With two 12AX7s and an AT7 in here, it has a gain factor of 260, so way more than the Page. So I swapped the tubes out for three that add up to a gain factor of about 100 as well. And with those lower gain tubes in this pedal, we could make these two sound pretty much exactly the same. There was a slight difference in low end, the mid-range was a bit different, but overall they were pretty much indistinguishable. Now one problem I did have in that video was the tone controls of these two pedals are very different. So the Tube Drive has a Baxandal EQ that affects the entire frequency range. The Page just has, well I don't want to say just, that sounds like a negative, but it only has a low pass filter, so it just shelves off some of those high frequencies. So really dialing them in to sound identical was pretty much impossible, but of course they're not identical. They're designed by two completely separate people to do very different jobs, but they are broadly equivalent with the low gain tubes in. Now I was posting over on the gear page about that video before it was released, and a user called Burnham commented saying, "I used to have a Tube Drive, wish I hadn't passed that one along." Yeah, it's phenomenal. Quick question, Perky, this may be answered in one of your videos of course, which it wasn't. But in the meantime, how does the Page boosted, i.e. a boost into the Page, compare with the Tube Drive running its standard higher gain tubes? And I thought this was a really interesting premise because it was kind of the opposite to that first video. In that I dropped the gain of the Tube Drive to match the Page, but what I could have done is boost the Page to match the gain of the Tube Drive and bring it up. So that's what I wanted to do today. So I've put the standard tube set back in the Tube Drive, two 12AX7s and an AT7. So first and foremost, I'm going to dime the Page in terms of gain and bring the gain on the Tube Drive down to match it, to see whether with the higher gain tubes in, we can still get those two pedals sounding broadly the same. But then I'm going to boost the Page and up the gain on the Tube Drive to see kind of for how long the Page can keep up with the gain monster that is the Effectrode. Now, what boost we put into the Page will have a big difference on the resulting sound. So something like a King of Tone, like a pretty full frequency boost, would sound very different than a Dallas Rangemaster, for example, which will sound very focused and nasal in the upper mid-range. So I thought long and hard about the correct sort of boost to put into the Page to try and match the Tube Drive. Now with them sounding broadly similar, or able to sound broadly similar, what I wanted to do was put a full frequency boost into this to kind of get more of the same. So what I decided on doing in the end is using again this pedal here, the Effectrode Fire Bottle, because A, it's an Effectrode and we're comparing Effectrode and Kingsley, B, it's a tube boost, so we're putting two tubes together like we're having three tubes together in the Tube Drive, but also it's a very full frequency boost, so we will just get more of the same out of the Page. So that's what we're going to do today, folks. I'm not going to do too many clips here, I'm just going to do 2 or 3 just to see how far we can push the Page with the Fire Bottle for some much higher gain distortion sounds. So without further ado guys, let's get going. are, folks. Now, please do comment underneath. Let me know what you thought of all that, what you were hearing, which was your favourite sound and why. I love chatting nerdy guitar stuff with you folks in the comment sections. Now, going back to the first clip with the SG, with the higher gain tubes in the tube drive, we could still make these two pedals sound pretty much exactly the same, couldn't we? As I said at the start of the video, the tone controls on these two pedals are very different, so dialing them in to sound exactly the same is pretty tough, but we could get them very, very, very close indeed. In the second clip with the telly boosting the Page with the Fire Bottle, again we could get it all sounding pretty damn close, couldn't we? We could account for any slight EQ differences that came from boosting into the Page with the tone control on the Fire Bottle, but overall, again, we were hearing the sort of slight difference in the low end between these two pedals, but they were pretty much ballpark, weren't they? But at the end there, when we were really slamming the Page with 30 dBs worth of boost from the Fire Bottle, that single 12AX7 in here was at the absolute limit of what it could handle. And it was really starting to sag and kind of give some sort of block distortion. But it was still a very cool sound, wasn't it? I think overall the Tube Drive hung on to that high gain much better than the Page did. It was much more of a kind of tight distortion pedal. You can tell this has been designed around much higher gain than the Page. But even so, it was a really cool sound. Do you know what it put me in mind of? It put me in mind of this pedal here, the Effectrode Mercury Fuzz. Because this has a mode called Heat that starves the tube of voltage and makes it really spluttery and farty and saggy. And that was what it put me in mind of, slamming the Fire Bottle into here as hard as it could. It was kind of really farting out, but in a really cool and unique way. So yes, the Page boosted can keep up with the Tube Drive up to a point, but there is only so far you can push a single 12AX7 before it starts to overload. But even when it does, it can give some really cool and unique distortion and fuzz sounds. So there we are, folks. I hope this video was interesting and useful for you. As I said, please do comment underneath with all your thoughts. I love chatting with you guys in the comment sections. And please do carry on subscribing to this channel if you're enjoying all these videos. I know I always say it, but it does make a huge difference when you do that. So thanks, folks, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.